produce, sell, and auction containers in this economy game where you're trying to outwit your competitors in Container.
And today we'll be teaching you how to play the 2026 version of Container, game designed by Franz Benno de Long, Thomas Hewitt and Kevin Nesbitt, and published by Allplay.
And hey everyone, it's Stella.
And Tarrant, welcome to Meeple University.
And hey, if you enjoyed this video after watching, like, subscribe and comments, you know what to do. Now let's get to the classroom.
In Container, players manage thriving manufacturing and logistics businesses, dealing in containers in the aim of earning the most money. In this highly interactive economic game, players will build factories to produce containers. Other players will buy those containers and truck them to their harbours. Ship owners will sail in, buy and load those containers at port, and sail them to their destination of Container Island, where an auction will determine those containers' final owner. The aim of the game is earn the most money. Get your most valuable combination of containers at Container Island, or be the one to supply the market with the most competitive product from your factories, or buy low and sell high as a logistics middleman. Or perhaps make the most of your dealings with the Offshore bank, which has more than just a passing interest in the flow of trade. Whatever you can do to find value is its own valid path to victory. In this video, we'll be teaching you from Allplay's 2026 release of Container, the game's third major release since first published in 2007. We'll be teaching the new standard default rules, which includes player factories and harbours, Container Island, as well as the Offshore bank, which wasn't a part of the game's original release. You may still play without the Offshore bank if you wish, and we'll explain the differences for that at the end of the video. To set up, first count out the player-limited components. There are containers and factories in each of 5 different colours, as well as warehouses. Based on this table for your player count, and whether you're playing a short, standard or extended game, count out the exact number of components required as your supply, returning everything else to the box. These returns will not be used at any time, not in setup and not during the game. Give each player a player board, rotated so that the slots and numbers face away from the player, and load it up with 1 harbour warehouse, 1 randomly coloured factory, done in such a way that each player has a different colour, and a container in their factory's colour placed here. This half of your board is your factory district, this half is your harbour district, and the container begins on your $2 factory slot. Each player has a ship which begins empty and sailing the ocean, meaning it's not docked at any harbour or island. The container and offshore islands are placed in the centre of the table. Near the offshore bank, you'll keep the 2 bank auction tiles, the 10 reserve tokens, 1 auction token in a 3 or 4 player game, or 2 in a 5 player game, and randomly place 3 different containers on the island, 2 in slot 1 and 1 in slot 2. Create the general supply of money cards. All of these cards have the same back, meaning throughout play you can conceal how much money you're holding, which is particularly important for the game's blind auctions. You're allowed to make change from your hand to this supply at any time, and each player begins the game with $20, as well as 2 of these $0 cards, which again are helpful in the blind bidding. Keep the stack of loan cards nearby to the supply. Also add $1, $2 and $3 of starting money to the Offshore bank's 3 slots. Finally, shuffle and deal each player 1 scoring card. Look at your card, but keep it secret from the other players. This tells you the colours of containers which are going to be worth the most to you if you own them on Container Island at the end of the game. Choose a first player and you're now ready to play. Container is an economic game.
You'll be managing prices, inventory, logistics, loans, and finance with the other players and with the Offshore bank, just like board games publishing.
Because this economy is central to every action, I need to take you through a few general concepts before we get into gameplay. In Container, each player maintains a hand of money cards. This is your cash on hand. If you're going to pay for any actions with money, it comes from money in your hand. And at the end of the game, your final score is going to be the money in your hand plus money gained from your Container Island containers. There are two other repositories for money. The supply, which are the raw decks of money cards, and the Offshore bank, which are these 3 lots of money below the Offshore Island board. Some of the game's actions will pay to the supply, and others will pay to the bank. For any which are paid to the supply, simply return the relevant cards to their supply decks. For any which pays to the bank, pay the money from your hand, and make change to split it up into 3 lots as equally as possible. Then add those 3 lots to the bank slots, always adding larger lots to the left and smaller lots to the right. The game's other financial feature is that, as with most capital-intensive industries, you are allowed to take on loans. At any time on your or another player's turn, you may take a loan from the loan stack and take $10. You may have at most 2 outstanding loans at a time. However, as the very first step of every one of your turns, you must pay loan interest of $1 per outstanding loan paid to the Offshore bank and split in the standard way. You may repay a loan by returning $10 and a loan to the supply at any time on your turn, as long as you have already paid interest for this turn. A turn in Container resolves in 3 steps in this order. First, pay your loan interest. This is mandatory and must be done strictly first. Then win a bank auction. This occurs only occasionally and it's linked to the call bank action. So we'll come back and talk about this a little bit later. And then take 2 actions. There are 7 different actions: build, produce, factory purchase, harbour purchase, sale, reprice, and call bank. But there are several different combinations which are either allowed or disallowed when you choose your 2. For example, actions which can be taken at most once per turn, or certain combinations of double actions which count as a single action. I'll take you through those restrictions and combinations as we describe the individual actions.
The first action is build.
Going back to the very start of the production chain, this is how you build up your company's infrastructure. When you build either a factory or a warehouse. In either case, take an available building from the supply, place it on your board, and pay the cost you cover to the supply. This is a direct cost to your contractors. The bank does not get a piece of the action. You can't build more than 1 factory of the same colour, and once a certain building type is gone, no one else may build it.
The second action is produce.
Run your factories to generate containers. You may produce at most once per turn. First, pay your factory workers' wages by paying $1 from your hand to the player sitting on your right. Not only does each player run a logistics business, they also control the union of their nearest neighbour. You must then take 1 container for each of your factories from the supply, unless unavailable, and choose the sales prices both for your new containers and for any which were already in your factory district. Each container may be set at any price between $1 and $4. There is no restriction. You have a maximum total storage capacity across your entire factory district equal to 2 per factory. You may not produce above this limit and may not discard down to make space. If this player produced from this state, they would have room to gain only 1 new container, leaving the other factory idle. The wage cost of 1 and the ability to reprice all of your factory district containers is the same regardless of how much you produce. Containers produced in the factories must be transported to the harbour by truck before they can be shipped.
And this is what happens in the next action, factory purchase.
You may make a factory purchase action multiple times per turn. For each such action, choose a single opponent. Pick any number of containers from their factory district to purchase. Pay that player the total purchase cost, here it's 2 plus 3 is $5, from your hand to theirs. Move the containers from their factory district to your harbour district and set their new prices. Again, as it was with the produce action, you can now set the prices for the containers you just purchased and any which were already in your harbour district, setting them anywhere from $2 to $6 without restriction. Your maximum storage capacity for containers across your entire harbour district is 1 container per warehouse. As with the factory district, you can never discard containers from your harbour district to make space. The fourth action is Reprice. Choose either your factory district or your harbour district and reprice all of the containers within that district. Now, as we've seen, you get a free reprice of the relevant district when you either produce or make a factory purchase. So it's generally inefficient to reprice as a standalone action. But if your storage is full and your merchandise is uncompetitive, sometimes it's an action you simply have to take to keep things moving. The fifth action is Sail.
Time to get those container ships out in the open water.
In Container, there are 4 possible places you might find a ship. These are docked at Container Island, docked at Offshore Island, docked at an opponent's harbour, or out in the ocean. Each type of location can be occupied by any number of ships at once. Just note that a player is never allowed to dock at their own colour of harbour. When you take the sail action, you either move your ship from any one of the 3 docking spots to the ocean, or from the ocean to any one of the docking spots. When your sail action takes you into the ocean, then that's the end of your action. But when your sail action finishes with docking, you now take its anchor action, which may be mandatory or optional, but it's usually efficient to do. At an opponent's harbour, the anchor action is to purchase and load containers from their harbour district. Choose any number of the containers, pay the cost from your hand to that player's hand, and load them onto empty slots on your ship. You may hold at most 5 and, as usual, cannot discard or return down to make space. This is called a harbour purchase, and do note that you can take a harbour purchase as a standalone action if you were already docked at the relevant harbour. This is usually inefficient, but it might make sense to do if there's better stock or better prices that have emerged in the location since you first docked. When your ship docks at Container Island, the anchor action is to hold a delivery auction. This is immediate, mandatory, and it ends your turn, so you should aim to do this as the second action of your turn. The delivery auction decides who gets all of the containers on your ship into their slot of Container Island, and therefore who will score it at game's end. Follow these steps. Firstly, each of your opponents secretly lays a bid of money face down from their hand that they're bidding to try to buy these containers. You can bid any amount, including using the 0 cards to conceal how big or small your bid might be. You may also choose to take a loan to gain $10 during the process of laying your bid. Once all opponents have bid, reveal, and the highest bid value is the provisional winner. If the winners are tied, the tied players get one more chance to lay cards face down to add to their bids before those 2 are revealed. If there's now a leader, that player is the provisional winner. If not, then the bidding is over and whoever started the delivery auction chooses which tied player is the winner. Players who did not win return their bids to hand, and the prerogative passes to whoever started the auction. They now have two choices. The first is deliver the containers to that player. Move all containers from the ship to that player's slot on Container Island. Take their bid money into hand, excluding any zeros which may be returned to the bidder, and then take the same amount of money in government subsidy from the supply. In this case, the player who made the delivery earns double the winning bid. Their other option is to buy the containers themselves for price equal to the winning bid. In this case, whoever started the auction takes the containers, the winning bid is returned to hand, and the player who started the auction pays the winning bid amount from their own hand to the offshore bank. There was clearly some shady financial goings-on involved with purchasing these containers out from under the rightful winning bidder. The last action is to call the bank.
Hello, Bank Tarrant. The offshore bank has its own container and money business going on. I'm sure it's legit, and calling them lets you get in on the action.
You may call the bank at most once per turn, and irrespective of your ship's location. Calling the bank is different to the offshore island's anchor action, which I'll talk about later. When you call the bank, you either start or bid in a bank auction. When you start a bank auction, you're either going to choose one of the bank's 3 lots of containers and open a cash bidding war to buy those containers, or you're going to pick one of the bank's cash lots and open a container bidding war to sell those containers for that much money. If you do the former, so trying to buy containers, pick the slot, take the tile which shows the outline for cash cards, and lay an amount of money face up from your hand onto the tile representing your bid. Unlike a delivery auction, there is no secrecy here. All players would know that I had bid $5 for these 3 containers. Money, while on this tile, can't be spent for any other purpose. While this auction is active, another player may take the call bank action to outbid the highest bidder. They must lay down strictly more money. The former highest bidder returns their bid to hand, and the new highest bidder takes the tile and lays their bid on it. If at the start of your turn and after paying loan interest you are holding one of these tiles, then you win the bank auction. Pay your money bid to the lots of the offshore bank. Move the purchased containers to your offshore holding location and return the bid tile and auction marker. You can later collect any or all of these containers to your ship as the anchor action when you dock at Offshore Island. If instead you want to call the bank to start a money auction, then pick one of the 3 money lots and take the bidding tile which shows warehouses and factories. Now declare the containers you're bidding. For each bid, replace the container in its district with a reserve token and move the container to the half of the bid tile matching the district, so factory and harbour. While a container is on the bid tile, it can't be purchased, but it does still count towards your storage limit. Here I still have the maximum 2 containers in my harbour district. When this sort of auction is active, another player may claim the highest bid with a call bank action by bidding more containers. So in this case, any 3 containers. They can be the same or different colours, the same or different districts. It must simply be a bid of more containers. The player losing the bid returns the containers to their boards. These go to the correct districts. So this was a factory district container, and this was a harbour district container. Those newly returned containers may be repriced, other containers may not. Return the reserve tokens to the supply, and organise the new bid by the same rules. If at the start of the turn you still hold this tile, then you win the auction. Return all of the reserve tokens to the supply, Distribute your bid containers to the bank. As was the case for money, split it into 3 groups as equally as possible, but in whatever colour combinations you wish, and then distribute them left to right. Take your new money to hand and return the auction components. In the 3 and 4 player game, only one auction may be open at a time. In the 5 player game, there may be 2 auctions, but it must be one auction of each type. While a bank lot is up for auction, it is never added to. So for example, if there were a payment of $7 to the bank right now, it would be split 2 ways into these lots, leaving the auctioned lot alone. You may not call the bank on the same turn that you won a bank auction, nor on the same turn that you trigger the end of the game. It's not ideal, but you may reach the point where you need to pay loan interest and don't have enough cash on hand to do so. If this happens, and you already have 2 loans so can't take another one, then pay what you can, and then for each loan you couldn't pay on, the bank seizes 1 container. This will come from your most valuable location, and if multiple are available, will be chosen by the player to your right. The priority order for seizures is first Container Island, then off your ship, then out of offshore holding, then from your Harbour district, and then from your factory district. The seizures go left to right in the bank's container lots. Players will progress and build up their empires, but eventually the game must end, and you count up money to see who's the winner.
Well, all good things must come to an end.
The end is triggered on the turn in which 2 container colours or more are exhausted from the supply. The active player finishes their turn, but may not take the call bank action this turn, and then the game is over. If there is an active bank auction, whoever currently leads it immediately wins that auction. Now count up your final scores. Each player begins with the money in their hands. Now reveal your scoring card and gain money for your containers on Container Island. To do this, you must first set aside all containers of the type you have the most of. These will not score. In the case of tied colours, you choose the one colour among them which won't score, unless one of the tied colours is the one on the second line of your card, which shows $10, $5. If that one is among the tied most, then you must lose that. Gain the money for what's left. Here it's $30 for 3 blue, 6 for a white, and 2 for a red. For the dual price container, it's $10 per container if you had all 5 colours of container on Container Island. So here it would be 2 times 10 for $20. But only 5 each if not. So here, missing any red containers, it would be 2 times 5 for $10. Containers still on your ship or in your offshore holding gain $3 per container. Containers in your harbour score $2 each. Containers in your factory district score nothing. If you still held any loans, repay each for $10 plus another $1 interest. Whoever has the most money wins. If tied, leftover factory containers breaks the tie, and if still tied, victory is shared. As we mentioned at the start of the video, the original release of the game did not include the offshore bank, and you can still play without it. Just note that that means the game's entire economy will be player-driven, and therefore if the general economy gets stalled, you won't have the offshore island to break that deadlock. To play without it, you simply don't use this board at all. With no bank, there is no longer a distinction between bank and supply. All payments, wherever they would have gone in the default rules, now go to the supply. There is no call bank action, and there is no win bank auction step. Classic rules also play without the $0 bluff cards. It's now a little bit harder to conceal your bid size, and anyone who is holding any money must bid at least $1 on a delivery auction.
Thanks for watching. watching. And if you like this video, maybe you'd like to watch this next one too. Have a great day. Bye.